Dennis Cox and Chris Lee about to dig in the crates. So turn it up, cause it's time for the culture state. Yeah, we do it for the culture, home of the greats. And in Carolina, good from the culture state. Chris Lee and Dennis Cox about to dig in the crates. So turn it up,
let's go.
Time for the culture state. It's a Carolina state of mind. No other state you can find.
Yes.
With a history that's quite like mine.
Yeah.
See,
we're here. That is the intro you're going to get from us today. Because we're both tired.
Well, Chris.
Look at my eyes. Look how puffy my eyes are.
Yeah, well, Chris, you had your first ever Christmas as a dad of 2 kids.
Yeah.
So congratulations to
2
you,
kids.
sir.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you all had all your matching pajamas and stuff. It was awesome.
Yeah, we had the matching pajamas. You know, me and my wife have the matching tired faces, but it's okay though. You know what I'm saying? At some point, we're going to get some rest and go out and be like young people again.
Yeah, there you go. Look at you.
It's gonna happen.
Which, by the way, real quick, let me step aside real fast. I actually want to show you a gift that I got for Christmas this year.
Oh.
1 second.
Okay. Okay, so now the anticipation is mounting because I want to see what Dennis is going to get, what he's going to pull out.
I know you're going to appreciate this, Chris.
Okay.
So I have to show it to you because you know you're from the 336, right? We all know that. You've always spoken about Dewey's, right? Those Moravian cookies.
Oh.
Look what I got for Christmas. I got a can of Moravian cookies from Dewey's, and you know what the best part was? The lovely lady that bought this for me didn't even have to go to Winston-Salem to buy it. She got it right here in Raleigh at a pop-up spot right in the Village District, so she didn't have to go all the way out to Winston-Salem to get it. She could stay right here in Raleigh and got Dewey's cookies just for me.
How do you like it?
I haven't had any yet.
Oh. Well, you should try your first one right here.
Oh, you want to try it right now? Moment of truth. This thing is definitely well packed.
I will say this. I will say that the Dewey cakes are a little bit more enjoyable than the cookies to me. But a lot of people like the thin cookies.
Solid.
You like it?
Little ginger spice. I like it. As I spill some here on my desk. They're good. I will say that. They're pretty solid. Shout out to 336.
Yeah, I was gonna say you look like you're having a fun 336 time right there with the Dewey cookies. That's what's up.
I didn't have to go there to have it, Chris. Imagine that.
I can't tell if that's shade or not. Is that shade?
For me? No, never.
Yeah.
Never. I would never throw shade, Chris. Come on, who are you talking to here?
I just want to know, Dennis, like what were some of your personal highlights of this year?
Personal highlights this year, honestly, just the way Culture stayed elevated this year. I thought for us it was taking our show to another level, and just what we offer as Culture State, as a brand, just as a show. So yeah, I would say that's a personal highlight for me professionally in terms of that. Just all the cool people that we got to talk to, interview, and the places that we got to go.
Yeah.
I know there's some places I got to go, unfortunately, that you did not, like the ACC tournament, Final Four, those kinds of things. You know, COVID restrictions were still a thing, believe it or not, early in 2020. They were still a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so to me, that was professionally, that was the biggest highlight. Just all the things that you and I got to do together and the stuff that we were trusted to do by the folks at our company, which is a very, very big thing. That's something that we don't take lightly. And just on a personal standpoint, just there are a lot of ups and downs for me in 2022. I won't dive too much into them. Chris, you know very much all about them. But I will say this, that 2022 ended on a pretty big high note. I will say that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say, you know, very similar as far as Culture State. Like, you know, we had the soft launch of WRL Sports Plus earlier this year. Yeah. And we became the first weekly, you know, original programming on WRL Sports Plus. And so for however long WRL Sports Plus stays around, we can always say that, that we provided that. It turned from, you know, a little thing that I think a lot of people just didn't understand, and it's like, okay, well, they're doing it so we can use it as a time filler to like legit programming. Like it's an exciting thing. Like, oh, Culture State's going to be extended a few weeks for radio. Cool. That helps us out with programming because we need some good programming. Let's put it on there for Saturdays. You know, it turned into that. So, you know, definitely excited how we elevated becoming like an actual brand within the company and everything. And then, personally, of course, new baby.
Yeah.
Corbrielle Lee, and then adding play-by-play to my repertoire, and finally being able to. This is the first year that I felt like everything felt normal in my job at WRL, because things haven't been normal. I started in 2020, March 4th, 2020. It was normal for a week, then it stopped being normal for the next 2 years.
Even that week really wasn't normal either.
It wasn't a normal week because it was the beginning of the ACC. Well, it was the end of the regular season. Then we had the beginning of the ACC tournament. So it's not an exactly normal week, but it just it felt normal for a little bit, and then everything just kind of went kaput. So glad that we're back to a little bit more normalcy. Was able to go back to NABJ. That's something that's huge for me. So it was a pretty good year. And it's a pretty good end of the year to the Carolina Panthers.
So far, yeah.
I mean, so good that Trey Boston and Steve Smith are online right now talking about coming back along with Josh Norman. And first off, Josh Norman's back as a Carolina Panther.
I know.
What is going on here?
Still in the league? What's happening here? What is going on here? I was like, was he even in a training camp or something? I don't know. I know he did play last season, but yeah, the fact that they're bringing him back, obviously the injury to J.C. Horn, which is a totally different conversation, necessitated a move. But yeah, the fact that you got Trey Boston and those guys, like you mentioned, are like, hey, I'm still around. Trey Boston just played a year ago and was a starter for the Panthers, so it's not like he's that far removed. Obviously, there's a difference between being in shape and playing in shape are two different things. But still, the fact that, like you mentioned, people associated with the organization who knows Steve Wilks want to rally around that guy. You didn't see that at the beginning of the season with Matt Rule. You just didn't. People are like, who's this guy? And that was actually something that I've heard other people say, is that former players weren't around the facility a whole lot beginning of the season with Matt Rule. Now, in previous seasons, COVID restrictions, things along those lines, I get that. But now that he's gone, you're seeing more former players come back in. Yeah. You're seeing these guys rallying around the team, wanting them to be successful. It kind of reminds me a little bit, to make a comparison, is back when Justin Williams had like his kind of like hiatus a little bit from the league. Or I guess we say when he re-signed with the Carolina Hurricanes the first time, back the 2018-2019 season, when they made that run to the Eastern Conference Finals. It was, hey, I'm coming home type thing. He's been in other organizations, had a lot of success, but he wanted to come home. He wanted to help Carolina. We're starting to see that more with Steve Wilks as the head coach with the Carolina Panthers. That's kind of the comparison I draw a little bit, is that, you know what, we want to see these teams, our home team, have success. And
there was a culture that was built here. And I think a lot of people took it the wrong way, and deservingly so, when, Matt Rule kept saying, I'm here to fix the culture. Yeah. The culture wasn't broken. It was just the fact that there was a coach that was there for 8 years who, did a really good job before you. It's just that after a while, like everything runs its course, and it ran its course. He ran into a wall of a bunch of injuries and players who are starting to get older and were about to be on their way out of the league. So, things just kind of went downhill just naturally for Ron Rivera. The culture wasn't broken. No. There was nothing wrong with the culture. This wasn't a bad culture. There were things that, weren't so good about, Jerry Richardson. We won't get into that.
Whole different conversation.
But Ron Rivera is good at making sure that the culture around his team is still good, even though that the owner might not be such a good person. He has a lot of experience with that. And so, it's just from a personal standpoint, watching and being able to cover the Carolina Panthers, you see Luke Kuechly walking around a little bit more now than what he was before. You see Jonathan Stewart walking around more than what he was before. I think I even saw Mike Tolbert one time. Like, it's all these other former players that just, like, as you said, starting to pop up. Even if they don't pop up on camera, I've seen them there personally. And, they are around now, and it shows. So it's very interesting how people are now starting to rally around Steve Wilks in a way where they didn't rally around Matt Rule, but also the results too.
Yeah.
In 10 games, he's got 5 wins.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Rule never got more than 5 wins
in a season,
in either season that he was in. So very interesting. But we're going to talk about some of the top happenings for this year. I don't know if we have an official countdown, but let's talk about a few things. And while we're already talking about the Carolina Panthers, let's just slide into that. Matt Rule being fired.
Yeah.
Was probably the best thing to happen for the Carolina Panthers this year.
And you said, wait till the bye week. And I was like, no, make it happen now.
I did.
Get him out now. Like, it's not working.
The reason why is because I didn't anticipate, not saying that Coach Steve Wilks isn't a good coach. I just didn't anticipate him being able to rally everybody like this to where, at week 16, heading into week 17, these guys are 2 wins from making the playoffs.
Yeah.
For as bad as it was. I mean, you're talking about it so bad, they got rid of the head coach. They traded your star running back. You traded the guy who started at quarterback for you, or you let him release him.
Yeah.
Later on. Now he's with another team. And you traded your number 2 wide receiver. And you are still 2 wins away from the playoffs. Nobody would have been able to guess that.
And you fired multiple assistant coaches.
Yeah.
As well. Steve Wilks fired multiple assistant coaches as well. So it's and at different points during the season. Yeah, just the simple fact that they even have a chance is it's a, lack of a better term, a miracle in that sense. Because everything you just mentioned, best player gone, one of your top 2-3 wide receivers traded away, whole coaching situation in disarray, all that kind of stuff. But you know what? Here they are, still with the chance. And just the style of play, how things have changed around that team. You were there on Sunday in that game against Detroit. Goodness, they just ran all over the Lions, just straight beat them down.
I felt like I was watching a college game. And, that's no disrespect to the Panthers. That's more so disrespect to the Lions, because in NFL football, you just don't see that many explosive runs pop off. I'm talking, 10, 15, 20, 30, 35-yard runs pop off, like multiple. I think I counted as far as explosive plays in general for the Carolina Panthers. I think they had 12. So, and I'm just counting that as, 10 yards or more per play. In the first half, they had 7 runs that went for 13 yards or more.
Yeah.
The longest was 38. And so it's just what is this? I felt like I was watching the ACC championship game. You don't see that in the NFL. You'll see, 8 yards here if it's going to be, something big. 8 yards here, maybe 12 yards here, maybe one big explosive play, for 35 yards. But you don't see that going down the field immediately. It felt way too easy for the Carolina Panthers. But shout outs to the offensive line, though, because for a group that was, really picked on a lot last year, we talked about how bad they were.
Well, they were.
They really were.
Yeah.
The Panthers have done a really good job rebuilding that line, and they are really good this year.
It was Dan Campbell, the Detroit Lions head coach, when shaking hands with Steve Wilks after the game. It was like,
he's intense.
Well, he's like, I'm gonna edit this. He goes, that was a bleeping butt whooping. Like y'all kicked our tail. That's what Dan Campbell said to Wilks. He's like, yeah, y'all just did that to us.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is in football, if a team throws for a bunch, it's like, okay. Sometimes you might just get these big chunk plays. A guy gets open, defensive back slips. You're like, okay, they beat us throwing the ball. But when you get run over like that, it is a pride thing. You're like, man, I just literally just got pushed around. And there's you just have no answer for it. That dude in front of me just beat me. Just simple as that.
Here's another part that I thought was very interesting. It was the coldest kickoff ever at Bank of America Stadium. It was at 20 degrees. That's the coldest game that was ever played there. The Panthers only played in 2 games that were colder than that. And those are both away games. So that was one of the coldest games, period, in history for the Carolina Panthers. And you would think the team from Detroit would be able to handle that. and they weren't able to handle that. Like it was the Panthers that handled the cold better, and you could see with the cold and the running and everything like that, the Lions didn't want to hit. Like once the running back got 2 or 3 yards beyond the line of scrimmage, like guys didn't really want to hit him, and it was tough for them to even get in that position. So I just thought it was very interesting looking back and watching that and seeing the team from up north, the team that's like literally right across the river, right across the lake from Canada, not want to hit.
Well, that's the thing. They play indoors, though. That's the thing. They do play indoors.
Yes, you still got to walk outside to your car when you leave the facility. You think you'd be used to it.
Yeah, but you got that automatic starters. If you got one of those, you can have your car all heated up. By the time you get heated seats and all that, yeah, you're fine. You're fine. But yeah, it's not like a team from like Green Bay or Buffalo, which you're used to playing outdoors and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Shout out to Buffalo. Hope everyone literally gets dug out up there with all the snow going on. They're probably still digging themselves out. They can watch this episode weeks later, and they're probably still digging themselves out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just the whole culture of how the Carolina Panthers have turned things around has just been phenomenal. Yeah. Speaking of football in the state of North Carolina, this is the best college football season that we have seen in the state of North Carolina ever. We're claiming it. We're claiming it. Best season ever in the state of North Carolina for college
I think we're the ones to really point that out.
Yeah.
And I think we're in the best position to point that out because, we do pay attention to the entire state. And then also I helped to start the WRL Power Rankings this year. So it gave me some insight as to what everybody is doing. And as you're just kind of looking across the board, like, a lot of these teams have been so good. They're making these, TV stations really have to make a lot of financial decisions in December that they don't want to make in December. Like usually that's like, we have our budget set, we have this, and maybe 2 teams will make a bowl. Maybe 1 team will make a bowl. We have that budgeted out. Cool. No, I had to go to Atlanta for North Carolina Central.
Yeah.
We're traveling to San Diego. Pat Welter is going to go there for the Holiday Bowl. Casey Hentz is going to Annapolis, Maryland for the Military Bowl, and she's going to Charlotte for the Duke's Mayo Bowl. And guess who gets left out in our viewing area?
You?
No.
Oh.
East Carolina going to the Birmingham Bowl.
Oh, okay, I was thinking like you?
Yeah.
That's right. That's right, East Carolina.
And there's a lot of East Carolina grads around here in this area. And so these are a lot of, so if you're watching this and you're like, WRL doesn't care about blah, 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 blah. Like, no, like there's a lot of financial decisions that had to be made. This, like, who do you leave out? And, imagine if, Campbell happened to make an FCS, playoff and go far and have a great run. Yeah. We would have literally been taxed. There's only 3 of us. There's only so much we can all do all together and plus with a budget.
I'll go. Send me out there. I'll do some field reports.
Oh yeah, you're shooting now, so you can do the reporting and everything. Send back.
I put together one heck of a highlight reel. I will admit. Yeah. Check that out. It's right here on 99 The Fans YouTube page. Check it out.
No, but this has been a good year, as you said. All 4 ACC teams made a bowl game. If Appalachian State wouldn't have been acting dumb, they would have made a bowl game. All they had to do was win 1 more game. Yeah. East Carolina is there in a bowl. And then you had Gardner-Webb and Elon that it made. Am I missing another team?
Davidson. Shout out to the Wildcat.
And Davidson, that's what it is, to make the FCS playoffs. And then, of course, North Carolina Central making the Celebration Bowl and beating Jackson State, who was 12-0, to become Black College national champions. This is legit the best college football year. And then shout outs to North Carolina A&T, who had a really good year. They just lost to Gardner-Webb. And, if they would have beat Gardner-Webb, they would have been the ones to be in the FCS playoffs. So
Campbell had a good season this year, too. They beat NC Central. I was at that game. Yeah. They beat NC Central. Smashed it's, they did. They really did. I was actually surprised by that. It was a bad day for the Eagles, but nevertheless, Campbell had a good season, too. It was a really fun year in North Carolina to cover all these schools, to cover all these games. And it's good for the state as a whole if these teams continue to win and be successful because it helps strengthen the rest of the state.
Absolutely.
It really all started at the beginning of the year. We were at ECU when NC State visited them, first weekend of the season. The first weekend of the season set the tone for the rest of the year because
then we said it was the best weekend ever for North Carolina.
It was the best
football.
weekend and it ended up being the best season because we had State at East Carolina, which was literally came down to the final play. Then you had App State hosting UNC, which was just a barn burner of a match.
That came down to the final play, too.
Literally came down to the final play. Both teams in the 60s, which is just wild. But yeah, it came down to the final play. And then you had the Aggie Eagle Classic, which took place down in Charlotte, which was on national television at Bank of America Stadium. There were, 50,000 people there? The best way that you could start off college football in the state of North Carolina was that weekend, and it set the tone for the whole season, and it exceeded any expectation that we had.
Absolutely. It definitely was an amazing year. I'm glad that I had a chance to help chronicle it and cover it alongside of you and highlight, how big this was. And you can also see how big it is in recruiting, right? Yeah. Because, you're getting a lot of these kids who normally would have taken that big Tennessee offer or that Ohio State offer or, that Georgia Tech offer or whatever and leave. There's a lot of kids sticking around. And you even see it with Duke. Duke had a few guys that are from the state of North Carolina who are, who signed with Duke during National Signing Day, including Sean Brown, who I covered when I was in the Triad, and he's coming over to Duke next year as a wide receiver, really explosive player. They have a quarterback from North Carolina, so it's very interesting to see that and see the footprint and in how the recruiting has stepped up here. And a lot of guys, deciding to, hey, we're going to stay in state. If we can't make it to Duke, North Carolina, NC State, Wake Forest, well, shoot, we have great options in ECU, App State, NC Central, North Carolina A&T, Campbell, Gardner Webb, and these kids are taking those options for sure.
Yeah, it's awesome to see. And shout out Mike Elko, Duke head coach, ACC Coach of the Year, well-deserved.
Yep.
Absolutely well-deserved, well-earned.
Doing a great job.
Speaking of Duke.
The biggest story of the year in 2022, which is crazy because it feels like so long ago.
I know.
It doesn't even feel like it's this year. It feels like it was another year. But we actually got Duke versus North Carolina in the NCAA tournament. Now, first off, that's unheard of. Mm-hmm. Whether it's the round of 64, round of 32, Sweet 16, or Elite 8. Never happened. We got it in the Final Four. And it also was Coach K's final game.
Well, here's the thing. You got to go to the lead up to it as well. That was the end point. That was the WrestleMania moment, right? But there's a whole storyline built in. Chris, if you want to script it, like, hey, you know what? This long tenured head coach, Hall of Famer, he's retiring. The big rival school. Man, last home game. What if that rival school beats him in his last home game? Oh, and then they get to a championship weekend. Yeah. And that rival team beats him again. And he has to retire, losing his last home game and his last game ever to his rival school. Could you imagine? People be like, man, stop playing. Like, what is this fan fiction, fantasy thing that you're writing? Then it happened.
I mean,
then it actually happened.
Sometimes real life is better than fiction.
I know. That's the thing, is that you literally could not have scripted this any better. If I would have put this script in front of a writer, they'd have been like, okay, like I get it, but let's cool down a little bit. But man, you could not have scripted that any better in just terms of a story. In terms of a story. And the funny part was when the NCAA tournament bracket came out, a lot of people joked like, hey, Carolina and Duke played each other in the Final Four. They both made it there, right? Like, ha, kind of funny. And then they get to the Sweet 16, like, oh, they're both still here. And then they both win. You're like, nearly Elite Eight. Like, wait, if they both win, they are going to play each other in the Final Four. And then they both won. You're like, oh, like, this is a thing. And that game itself
was a great game.
Was so good.
One of the best college basketball games ever.
Was just one of the best games I've ever seen. Just pure, just because you have to take into account the story that's built into it. You know, just taking it, just the game itself is just looking at it in a vacuum. Just the game was awesome, but you add in that added element, phenomenal. The thing that stood out to me about that game specifically is Kansas and Villanova played first. So down there in New Orleans at the Superdome, they had the fans kind of sectioned off. So there's like a section of Duke fans, section of Carolina fans, Villanova fans, and Kansas fans. All right, so they kind of split up into quadrants. The Kansas-Villanova game was played first. Those fans stuck around. Just like, hey, we'll watch this. We got tickets. We're here. Might as well. They were standing on their feet just in awe from like the last 15 plus minutes of that game. They were on their feet standing, just watching because they realized they were witnessing something great.
Yeah.
They had zero stakes in the game in terms of like who they wanted to win or whatever. Zero stakes. But they were on their feet standing and they're just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
This is phenomenal. That was the moment. Actually, Lauren Brownlow was sitting next to me and I said, look at the stands. She looked over. She's like, oh my God, they're all standing. It's like, I know. Like it was that kind of moment.
Yeah.
It was so special.
Yeah, you're right. When you said earlier, you couldn't script it like this. This is, it was amazing. And then on the other side, we talked about the Duke story, but think about the Carolina story, right? Like this is the team that wasn't supposed to be there.
Yeah.
Because of how bad they did during the year. I mean, think about it. They never had a quad one win until they beat Duke at Duke. So if it weren't for that game, they probably don't even make it to the NCAA tournament without winning the ACC championship.
Yeah.
Which is, we know that they didn't. They got beat by Virginia Tech. So, like, it's very interesting, and it's almost kind of ironic that moment doesn't happen if North Carolina doesn't beat Duke at Duke in Coach K's final game. And we've heard interviews and everything afterwards. Paulo Banchero recently on JJ Redick's podcast talked about that game and said that week was so crazy. They did so much media and all that. There was no practice. There was no game planning for that game.
Yeah.
And he said that since then, he's never been in a game that's been as high of stakes or that he's felt that much pressure.
Yeah.
And think about what he's done since then. He's played the ACC tournament. He's played the NCAA tournament versus North Carolina in the Final Four, which we're talking about. He's played he got drafted number 1 overall, played in the Summer League, and started NBA games and had all kinds of great success in the NBA. To say that game is still the one with the highest amount of pressure shows you just how big that moment was because it was Coach K's final game.
Yeah.
I've heard Coach K say recently as well that he had to apologize to his team because at first he was initially upset that they didn't win it for him. And then he had a moment. He was like, I'm human too. Went back and said, you know what? I made it about me, and it should have been about us. And if it would have been about us, maybe the pressure wouldn't have been so hard on you guys.
Yeah.
And it is very interesting to hear a coach be that open about his downfalls 42 years into his great Hall of Fame career, and some regard him as the GOAT, the best ever. And, and I think that's one of the things that's kind of amazing about the story. Someday that's going to make an amazing, 5-part docuseries.
Oh, yeah.
When they interview everybody else around it, and Paulo Banchero's an NBA champion and, everything else. And we can't even forget this, Hubert Davis's first year as a head coach.
That's right.
We know that Duke and North Carolina will still be a rivalry, but we still haven't seen them play each other after that.
That's true.
So there's still a possibility that it could possibly have killed the rivalry. So we could only be able to tell in 5-10 years. But if this thing dives, because it really the rivalry that we know of today only really started with Coach K.
Yeah.
When Coach K had the gall to come in and start beating Carolina in times where Carolina was supposed to win. And then it's like, wait, what was this dude from Duke doing? And it really replaced the NC State Carolina rivalry. So it hasn't been put to bed?
Well, the epilogue still to be written to that story, sir. Epilogue still to be written. We'll see.
Nice little cliffhanger.
Yeah, there it was. That's what we call a tease in the business, sir. That's what we call a tease in this business. Well, Chris, it was a fun year. It was an awesome 2022. I'm hoping 2023 is even better for us.
It will be. We're going to have a great 2023. We hope you have a great 2023. Please, I don't know what I'm saying. Please follow us on social media at Chris Lee TV, at the Fan Rookie, at Culture State Pod.
And make sure you elbow drop that like and subscribe button right here on 99.9 The Fans YouTube page, because guess what? We're always going to be dropping stuff year round right
Turn
here.
it up, cause it's time for the culture state. Yeah.